President, Representative Perry, and honorable members of the Committee on Health and Human Services. My name is Gandhi, and I've been a professor at University of Utah since 1967. I've been involved in this area of research since 1973 and had a role in getting the standard in this country first and then followed by European Union, Japan, so on, in reducing the standard by a factor of 10. It used to be 10 milliwatt per square centimeter before I showed that at certain frequencies, the human body absorbs a lot of power, and contrary to the fact that they used to assume that half the power is absorbed, half is reflected, I showed that you can absorb up to 420% of the human cross-section by way of power, much like the lightning rod pulls in the fields going through the body. So all of that went along very well, and I started to look at anatomic models of the human body and computer computations. Next slide, please. Yeah, see, this briefly shows the papers that I published between 1996 first, and then this one, showing that the 5-year-old child will absorb a lot more than a 10-year-old child. And so this is a dramatization of that, the penetration of cell phone radiation in an adult head and in a 5-year-old head. So you can see that, and the reason is obvious. The reason is that a child is growing, the ear outside is thinner, the skin is thinner, the skull is thinner, so the telephone is held much closer to the brain, and therefore this radiation is able to penetrate much deeper into the brain for younger children. Next slide, please. See, this work, when I published this, of course, the cell phone industry didn't like, and this shows adults of larger size, medium size, and smaller size, and the deeper penetration for smaller heads, for the same reason. Thinner head, thinner ear, and thinner skull, and so on. Next one, please. See, I was involved in standard setting activities over the years. The thing I like to say is that all along we did take into account the fact that, people come in different heights, different dimensions, and so on, and therefore we wanted to protect all sizes, adults, men and women, 10 and 5-year-old children, and 1-year-old children. And in 1985, ANSI, American National Standards Institute, opted out of the safety standards business because of the possibility of committee members influencing the standards for benefit of their employers. And next one, please. And yet in 2005, we made the mistake of picking a member of the committee as the chair of the committee. And this individual used to work for City of Hope Medical Center in Los Angeles Basin, and was immediately grabbed and now works for a major manufacturer, wireless manufacturer. So he's been doing a great deal of service to them. And the major change that they have proposed is to allow a higher exposure of any 10 gram of tissue of the outer ear, which is called PINA in this business, which permits 8 to 16 times the higher powers than the older standard of 1.6 milliwatts per gram, and I used to be involved in the standard setting business. Next one, please. Next one. Okay, so this shows the papers that I published, which showed that for children, the absorption may be up to 220% higher at 1900 megahertz as compared to adults. And I also showed that if you use a plastic ear, which the industry prefers to use for cell phone testing for FCC, plastic ear arbitrarily removes the telephone by up to 10 millimeters away from the head. And we've shown that for every millimeter of removal of the cell phone from the head, there's a reduction in the absorption by 12 to 15%. Let me conclude by showing what, and this work has now been corroborated in France, Brazil, Spain, Japan, and in Switzerland. The last slide that I want to show is what, well anyway, you have all these things, and this is a warning label that Sugar Commission in UKIP proposes to be used.
Sorry about the warning here. Questions for the professor? You are a professor?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any questions? Thank you very much for being here.